Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I want to talk about actor, producer, director, Clint Eastwood. Um, I love Clint Eastwood. Who doesn't love Clint Eastwood? I mean, he's great in his movies, uh, especially the old ones. Well, all of them. I mean, I just think he's a great character. Great director. He makes great films, and he's great in films. He has some of the best one-liners of all time. I mean, uh, just that the way that he delivers his lines is classic. It's fantastic. The deep growly voice. Get off my lawn. I can't do it justice. Even though I'm very similar, charts have a certain similarity. I'm a Gemini. He's a Gemini sun. He's a seventh house Gemini sun. Seventh house, despite the bad reputation for a seventh house sun, it's great for like film or being on stage, being heard, really conveying voice, especially voice. Like 10th house is great for being seen, fifth house for creativity and presence, first house for everything, basically. But seventh house, really wonderful for singing or speaking to an audience. And Gemini is not the voice, but it's the expression, right? So he's got the Gemini sun, the expressive ability. Go ahead, make my day, right? So yeah, my Clint Eastwood impression's not as good as his Clint Eastwood impression is. But Gemini sun, that's fantastic for expression in general, being in the seventh house. Wonderful for being on stage, being a star, being in films. And then of course it's disposited by Mercury. Let's go to the moon first. Moon's in Leo, highly creative moon, famous moon. Leo rules fame. I mean, it's the sign that you want to have, at least in part. You want to have some planets here for fame. Not necessarily, but it helps. It helps a lot. Leo's ruling the 10th house cusp. Moon's at the beginning of Leo, more in the 9th house. He was not religious, but he was spiritual. He practiced TM, transcendental meditation. He meditates every morning. And that's very much dealing with the 9th house. Moon is ruling the 9th house cusp here. So this is very much about that TM, the spirituality, the philosophy, that also travel, long distance travel, things like that. Also recognition, fame recognition. I mean, 9th house is not like a fame house in itself, but it's not devoid of fame either. I mean, it can be, and especially if it's approaching the 10th house cusp, definitely. And then Leo is, wherever Leo is in the chart, it can potentially bring recognition, fame. He's a Scorpio Ascendant like me. So we have two things in common. And that Scorpio Ascendant, it's really prominent with Clint Eastwood. That's in the intensity with his look, because the Ascendant rules the appearance and the look and the body as a whole. It rules the self, the most conscious portion of the self, the most conscious part of the self. And that's why he's always like squinting and intense and like that's Scorpio. That's that Scorpio look, Scorpio stare. I mean, I have it without even trying, like between like my eyes. That's like very concentrated. I can't get rid of it, even if I wanted to. But that's Scorpio intensity, right? And then Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Aries. Mars rules Aries. It's a very strong Mars, right? It's in the 6th house. 6th house is health and illness. He was a health buff. Diet, health, nutrition, fitness. Also conflict resolution, fighting, competition. Mars in Aries in the 6th house is a fighter. It's a fighter. It will fight. and it will deal with conflict. And he always plays that role in movies because he has that natural energy. Like, it's not just like he's a good actor and he plays this tough guy. No, he really has that kind of energy. Like, he really is that kind of person. He's got Mars in Aries in the 6th house. Mars in Aries is tough. It can fight. I know Mars in Aries. I mean, damn. I have my Mars in Leo. Mars and Leo put on a show, but like, you know, if you want somebody to just like go out there and like excuse my language, but fuck shit up, like, get a Mars in Aries. You know, they will just do damage. They will just go on a rampage and destroy anything in their path. Unlike Mars in Scorpio, which unlike Mars in Scorpio, which is more vengeful, what I was going to say was, unlike Mars in Capricorn, which is much more controlled. Mars in Aries is not controlled. Mars in Aries will just go headlong, you know, into the battlefield and destroy whatever it can, you know, without even flinching. So in the 6th house, definitely deals with, like, you know, like the fitness aspect, the nutrition. I mean, he was very into health and food and diet and being physically fit and all that. And this also gives him that great energy for being the you know, the bad good guy, you know, like the tough guy, the cowboy, the dirty Harry cop, the, you know, the good guy who appears like a bad guy, essentially. And he has all the qualities. Could be a very bad guy, could be a very good bad guy, but instead he's a very bad good guy. So like that. That's his ascendant ruler. So it's very strong. And Mars in the 6th house is the strongest. It's Mars in the 6th house, Mars in the 10th house. I have Mars in the 10th house, but he has Mars in the 6th house. Very strong. On the 6th house cusp, basically. Oh no, it's a little pretty close. Very, very strong. Okay. What else is strong? Saturn is in domicile in Capricorn. Yeah, it's retrograde, but it doesn't matter. Saturn in Capricorn, such a strong Saturn. Saturn in Capricorn can overcome any difficulties because it's in domicile. It's so strong here. It can take any negativities and turn them into positives. It can take any hardship and make it work for them. It's such a good placement to have. Saturn's in the 2nd house, but it's in domicile, so it's not limiting wealth. 2nd house deals with wealth and assets. It also deals with the voice and knowledge and self-worth, value in general, what things we value and what. So he values hard work, and he has the voice of authority, because Saturn rules authority. Capricorn rules authority. He's very, very strong in this sense. A lot of times leaders can have Saturn in the 2nd house because they're presenting themselves, their voice, their knowledge, their mind. 2nd house is not mind, but it's the knowledge. It's the storage bank of our intellectual assets, right? That's what knowledge is. But it's also the voice. So there's a lot of authority there when Saturn's in the 2nd house. So they can come off like leaders. They appear very leadership because 2nd house also deals with appearances as well as the 1st house. So this is adding. It's like, even though it's the 3rd sign, so it's like 2nd, 3rd house influence, but it's still adding to the appearance. You know, very intense Scorpio, skipping over Sag, but then to Capricorn Saturn, right? Very intense, very strong, very dominating. Like, we really get like a sense of intimidation with Clint Eastwood, like the Scorpio intensity and the Saturn in Capricorn, 2nd, 3rd house, 2nd house really, but there's a little bit of 3rd house influence. But anyway, it's his voice, it's his expression, it's mostly his voice, but it's just this commanding presence that he has. Really, really strong. It's opposite Venus and somewhat a little wide, but Pluto's there too. And then in T-square with Uranus in Aries. This is very intense as well, because these are both 8th house planets, Venus and Pluto in Cancer. Now, he did have a lot of affairs and illegitimate children. Legitimate, illegitimate, I mean, that's just a technical term. They were his kids, whether we say they're legitimate or illegitimate. We know that he had these kids, I mean, with multiple wives, and that's very much here. You know, Venus is the planet of love and romance and, like, you know, joy and leisure in the 8th house. 8th house Venus loves sex and affairs and like all the 8th house things. It loves the occult too, but it loves being intimate with people. Don't forget, 8th house is about intimacy. Yeah, sex. Okay, but like there's a natural gravitas towards, you know, when you meet someone with, if you have planets in the 8th house, when you meet somebody who you're attracted to, it's just like you just want to sleep with them. It's just what happens, right? Depending on the planet, maybe less so if Saturn's there. But Pluto is going to make that very obsessive, especially, you know, in close enough proximity to Venus, 10 degrees. It's still influential. In Cancer, that's very, very, I mean, Cancer is the sign of fertility, of female fertility. So it's the sign of the mother. So yeah, he's going to impregnate women. I mean, that's just, I don't know how many kids he had, like a bunch with different women. So anyway, and he had like affairs and he had an open marriage and all this kind of stuff. Like, he just loved to sleep with women. Like, and we see that here. And there were consequences. Not terrible consequences, because it wasn't like, you know, breaking his piggy bank. I mean, he's rich. He was rich, right? Because Saturn's dignified here. But there were consequences. You know, there were restrictions, there were limitations, but nothing negative. And it was all square Uranus. Uranus is sudden events. 5th house deals with children as well, right? 5th house is the house of creativity. It's a house of being, performing on stage, because it's Leo's original house. It's the house of fun and games. It's the house of sports and having a great time in life, and just living your best life. And it's a house of confidence and all that. Uranus here gives him a lot of, Uranus in Aries is quite dynamic, because Uranus is like that lightning bolt, like pow, like just sudden, like dynamic, dynamism, independence, brilliance, out of the box. And Aries is the warrior, you know, the aggressor, the fighter, the initiating action, the fire starter. So here's very dynamic. It's like pow, you know, like, and he had that dynamism in his movies. He just, you know, like, could be like, you know, like staring down his enemy, and he's got his, you know, hand on his gun, and then all of a sudden, pow, 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 you know, killing them all dead. That's, I mean, he wouldn't be able to do that without Mars and Uranus in Aries, because that just has that energy. Like, that's why he was so good. Like, he could try and do that, but if he didn't have the natural ability to pull that kind of energy off, it wouldn't have worked. He would have done it once, and the director would have been like, no, we're not doing that again. It worked because he has that energy. This is such quick, feisty, aggressive, action-packed energy that he can do that. He can just be like, pow, 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 you're all dead. Okay. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I mean, and then the square to Pluto. Venus brings a lot of aestheticism. Squares, especially with a good Saturn, squares are fine. Squares are good with a good Saturn, because it's just like, you know, you need something to work on. You need tension, because Saturn requires a lot of hard work, and a dignified Saturn will take squares and just like make the best of them. So squares with a good Saturn is quite fine. It's quite fine. They do it. They love squares. Good Saturns love squares, because it just gives them something to work on, right? And he did not have a hard life. I mean, he even said so. When his father died, that was the most difficult thing for him. His father died of a heart attack younger than he was expected, and that was the hardest thing. I mean, great for Clint Eastwood. I'm not mad at him at all. I mean, he gave us such a gift. He's such a treasure to the film industry, to American, to worldwide culture, right? To the movie industry. Like, it's a fantastic thing that some people do not need to live difficult lives, that they can just have these charmed lives, right? So I'm not jealous at all, but he did not have it difficult, even though he had all these squares. That just made, he was ripe for it. He was, it just gave him something to strive for. And he was very disciplined, right? He meditated every morning. He ate well. He exercised. He was a golfer. He was a good guy. Like, he was even mayor of his own little town in Carmel by the Sea. It was a very small town. But kudos to Clint Eastwood for being such a great guy and having such a great life. He's got tons of strong planets. This Mercury is insane. It's stationary, right? It's -3 minutes. That's super duper slow. Super duper slow. That's why in Taurus, that's why he's like, he has like arguably the best one-liners in all of Hollywood, in all movies. I mean, who else? I don't think anyone else we could say has the quality of the one-liners. Maybe Groucho Marx in the comedic field. I got to do Groucho Marx next. But it's because Mercury is in Taurus, incredibly slow. My Mercury is in Taurus, very slow, not as slow as Clint Eastwood's, but that's why we have the same thing in common. I mean, I don't know if people think that I'm good at one-liners. Probably not, like Clint Eastwood is. Probably not at all. But it's having to do with this incredibly slow, basically stationary Mercury in Taurus, because Taurus is slow anyway. Taurus is like fixed, not like, it is fixed Earth. So anything you say in Taurus is like a blunt object over the head, like it's like boom, like a club. It's like a caveman with a club. They're just like bonking you over the head. That's a stationary Mercury in Taurus, conjunct the descendant. It just hits you so hard, right? Because it just has that impact. That's what a slow planet does. It's so powerful, and it delivers with full force. And then Mercury's the expression anyway. Venus is the voice. So where's this Venus? Venus is in Cancer here, 8th house conjunct Pluto. So like, and the Saturn. So the voice we're getting a lot of intensity from. But Venus rules Taurus, right? So then Mercury in Taurus, it has a lot of vocal ability, because Mercury is the expression and Taurus rules the voice. So here the voice is very, very strong, incredibly strong. That's why he's like, you could, make my day, punk, stuff like that. Like, and it just hits you so hard. It's like, yes, thank you, Clint Eastwood, for being such a badass. Jupiter's in Gemini, and this is just adding to the same theme, where he's just like so good with his expression, because Jupiter's the guru, the teacher, the master, the wisdom. And Jupiter's wisdom is well, it's not Jupiter's opposite. It's in detriment in Gemini. Let's just put it that way. The Jupiter's wisdom is brought down to the street level. It's not very high-minded. It's a very like streetwise Jupiter here with Gemini, because Gemini's street wisdom. Jupiter and Gemini's street wisdom. Jupiter and Gemini can be very funny, but it can also be very it's great with Gemini things, great with speaking, expression, communication. On the 8th house cusp, this is giving him a lot of occult, death, sex, 8th house stuff, right? Jupiter is fertility as well, because it rules children. So I think this is contributing to all his affairs and children by other women and stuff like that. And it's just also contributing a lot to his expressive ability. Jupiter's the guru. So he's like a teacher he can be a teacher of expression. And he's also director, and that helps a lot here because 8th house is like the secrets, the underground, right? And so like it's a little bit behind the scenes. 8th house. This is excellent for film. Neptune conjunct the MC. It's excellent for arts and film, even though it's out of sign. It's 0 degrees Virgo and still close enough. And we see this a lot in actors, actresses, musicians, artists, dancers, you know, all the art types, all the creative types. Could be spirituality too, but here it's more the creativity thing. And like I always say, if you see this in a politician, run. That politician is just an actor and they're lying to you like 100% of the time, like Joe Biden. Joe Biden is just, there's nothing, no true words come out of Joe Biden's mouth. He just 100% lies. And if that surprises you, it's because you don't, a liar is not revealing themselves as a liar. What they're saying is supposed to mimic the truth. It's supposed to act like the truth. So you think they're telling the truth. That's a liar, right? Everyone has it backwards. They think a liar is so easy to tell because they're just obviously lying. Well, that's not a liar. That's not a good liar anyway. So anyway, Neptune, and that's probably why he's not a good, he would not make a good politician because, yeah, although he can lie a lot, lie easily, like acting, he's too much, he can fool people too easily. That's what makes him a great actor, honestly, and film director. Plus he has South Node in Scorpio in the 12th house. South Node is the early part of life up to 42, mostly represents, and the 12th house deals with creativity, behind the scenes. It can be like acting, arts and creativity, spirituality, hidden things, foreign lands, and a whole bunch of other associations that are probably not relevant to Clint Eastwood. But this gives him great ability towards all that, just naturally born with. And Scorpio is very, very secretive, right? So all the hidden things and behind the scenes and creativity and acting. And then North Node is moving into the 6th house. So as he got older, he became much more health conscious, you know, gave up the booze. Oh, by the way, he's not a smoker. He only smoked on stage, like as it was required for acting. That's very much the 6th house influence. And he was not he liked beer, but he was not into hard liquor, or at least as he got older. You know, maybe when he was younger, he liked the liquor, but then he stopped it as he got older. And that's the 6th house influence. That's the Saturn in Capricorn, being so, you know, self-disciplined and strong-willed. And that's why we love Clint Eastwood. Like he's not just like this stupid Hollywood jerk off, you know, this like, you know, his ego is like 10, you know, way overblown. He's a cool guy. He's a real guy. So yeah. What else? I mean, that's pretty much it, I think. Like, he's got such dignified planets, like his Mars, his Saturn, his Mercury. Yeah, those are pretty much the most dignified out of all his planets. But that's, I mean, that's a lot. Like, the Mercury is incredible, and so are these Mars and Saturn. So strong, so potent. That's why he's just like super duper intense and just delivers these lines that are just hit so hard, right? This Mercury and Taurus conjunct the Descendant, it's just like so hard hitting, so heavy, right? It's amazing. All right, that's pretty much it for Clint Eastwood. The chart always reveals the character of the person. It's uncanny, always does that. I love it. I love astrology for that reason. It's real, it works. It always tells the truest story about the person. More than anything else, we can rely on astrology to understand who the person is. And, you know, I've got all that Scorpio energy, the 8th house. He's a 7th house Gemini sun. I'm an 8th house Gemini sun. 8th house is all the occult stuff. I got the Scorpio Ascendant. That's why, like, I'm into this. I'm into the psychology, understanding what somebody's about, in their inner truth, the core being. Scorpio dives into, you know, the core, the depths, beyond all the bullshit superficiality. All right, guys, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. And if you want to book a reading, go to my website, macroastrology.com. And punk, don't be intimidated by the Scorpio's stare. All right, that was bad. I'll leave you with that. All right.